Hi, good evening, everyone. I hope you are all doing well and staying safe. Guys, I'm going to give you just a few minutes in order for you to enter the webinar. And by that time, I want you to tell me if you can see my screen and you can hear me well. Just drop a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or you can just type in the chat box yes or no, please. All right, perfect, guys. Amazing. All right, so welcome to the CFA information session with Morgan International. I am Daniel Saad, the program advisor for the CFA program here in Lebanon. And I will be accompanied by Ra'ad Al-Hanoun. He's one of the CFA instructors at Morgan International as well. And we're gonna both give you heads up and we're gonna do a demo lecture as well for the CFA. Our course will start on the 21st of May, and it will keep on going until the 30th of October. All right, guys. Just I will ask you to keep yourself muted in order to avoid any background noise. But by the end of the session, we'll definitely have a Q&A where you can ask all your questions. Now I'm gonna give Ra'ad the floor just to introduce himself and just to tell you if he has anything in particular.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Hope you are all doing good and have a safe and healthy stay. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Ra'ad Hanoun. I'm CFA charter holder, finance and budget senior specialist at the World Bank. I've been teaching with Morgan since approximately 10 years. I teach the CFA program. And I'm really looking forward to be part of this program because it really adds value to your career later on. Because the CFA is one of the most important designations that you might take in the finance industry. So whenever you want to be part of the finance industry as CFA charter holders, it will really add value to your own career. So that I took my CFA charter holder and I directly took a position at the World Bank. This shows how the CFA charter holder really adds value to your own career. I have a PhD degree in economics and I'm a lecturer at the Lebanese University as well. So that I have this academic experience through teaching at universities and at Morgan. And I have the practice or the practical experience related to the banking industry, finance industry, and the World Bank itself. Okay, Daniel.
All right, thank you, Ra'ad. All right, guys. I'm going to kickstart the session now with today's agenda, where I will take the chance to discuss, along with Ra'ad, of course, all the details you need to know about the CFA designation. First of all, I'm going to take the chance to talk about Morgan International in brief. We're going to talk about the CFA career outlook, the CFA charter eligibility requirements, the CFA exam, and the partnership between Morgan and Kaplan Schweser. We're going to talk a bit about the CFA prep solutions. We're going to dig deep into the tips and some tactics and advices. We're going to have the demo lecture with Ra'ad, and then we're going to have a small Q&A. All right? First of all, congratulations for making it to the CFA webinar. Definitely, we are here to support you in each and every step. If you decided to register with Morgan International, we are always by your side, whether it's during your sessions, whether during your studies, in your exams, and even after you finish. Because actually that's what we have been doing since 1995, when we first started with a very small office here in Beirut. And after 25 years, we were able to become the global network with 32 locations worldwide across the Middle East, in Europe, Canada, and in India. We do have 25 years of experience servicing various industries with international certifications, whether they are related to finance, accounting, auditing, supply chain, human resources, and digital marketing. We do have leading partnerships as well with sole providers and material suppliers. We have more than 125,000 candidates and alumni as we speak, And we believe that we have some of the best instructors in the world. We have more than 350 experts and certified instructors today. So with the help of our instructors and our staff, definitely, we also work in coordination to cater the needs of other professionals and companies to customize perfect trainings, not only through professional certifications and diplomas, but as well with foundational certificates, industry-specific workshops, soft skills workshops, and corporate in-house training. All right, so definitely we are best known for our international certifications, and some of them include CPA for external auditing, CIA for internal auditing, CMA for managerial accounting, CSCP for supply chain, SHRM for human resources, and CDMP for digital marketing. And definitely concerning the webinar today, the CFA for the finance, which are some of the most credible designations around the world, not only in Lebanon or in the Middle East or anywhere. These certifications are the most important and they are accredited anywhere in the world. That's why we have a huge corporate network of people that took already courses with Morgan International. They work for companies such as the Big Fours, PwC, KPMG, Deloitte, EY. Some of them, they work in banks like the Arab Bank, BankMed, Bank Audi, Scotia Bank in Canada, for example, and many other companies such as HP, Touch, Fatal, and others as well. So these are definitely numbers matter. Numbers that matter are out of the 25 years of experience that we have, we've been offering the CFA training for 19 years now, and we have more than 11,000 CFA alumni from Morgan International. All right, now I'm going to give it back to Raed, and he's going to talk to you how to prepare for career success.
Okay. So as I previously mentioned, the importance of the CFA as a designation in the finance industry, and it is globally recognized. And once you are CFA charter holders, it means that you have a certain designation that is known worldwide. Whether you're working in the States, in the Gulf, in the Middle East, Europe, once you are CFA charter holders, you have this certificate as a visa, as a passport, that really allow you to join multinational companies. And this is very important. So the global recognition of the CFA, it adds value to this charter holder. And this should give you a certain incentive in order to join this program and make sure that you really accomplish it by fulfilling all the 3 levels and get your CFA charter holder. Basically, the importance of the CFA and why it is globally recognized, it's through its highest standard. You know, throughout the curriculum of the CFA, you will be given a certain resources, tools, techniques to know how to use the financials in terms of analysis, portfolio management, equity investment with the highest standards. So this is what really characterizes the CFA charter holders. And they will be equipped with very high competencies in terms of knowledge, skills, and abilities. So the fact that we are CFA charter holders, it gives you an indication for the employer, for the multinational companies that you have the best standards, knowledge, skills, and abilities. Besides those high standards, the CFA curriculum and the CFA Institute mainly emphasize on the ethical foundation. And you will notice that throughout the 3 levels of CFA, we have a topic which is related to ethical behavior, ethical standards, code of ethics, in order to make sure that CFA candidates and CFA charter holders, they are aware of all ethical practices. And this is really promote the CFA designation. Because later on, when you are in the finance industry, you might have some actions that are considered legal, and we don't violate any law if we do a certain action. But at the same time, I want to know whether this action is ethical or not. So only we should value both features and make sure that whatever action we take as financial analysts, experts, portfolio managers, we are relying to the legal standards and the ethical standards. So those ethical standards really come and give a very high value for the CFA charter holder. Again, as we said concerning the highest standard, we will have as CFA candidates and charter holders unmatched expertise and skills. because what you will learn through your journey as a CFA candidates, and it really adds value to your professional later on, because we're talking about every aspect related to the finance industry. Whether you'll join a financial institution, financial intermediary, bank, insurance company, or either multinational companies in the finance department, treasury department, risk management department. So we're talking about skills that are really recognized by the CFA charter holders. Besides this, you will have a prestigious networks. Yani, as a CFA charter holder, you will be part of the CFA Institute. And this CFA Institute includes CFA societies from all the world. Yani, in the GCC, we have a CFA society for KSA, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. In the MENA region, we have CFA Society of Lebanon. So that we're talking about CFA societies related to each country, and they all belong to one CFA institute in the state. So whenever you are CFA charter holder, you will be part of this network. And when you're talking about CFA charter holders network, and you're talking about experts in the finance industry, you will have a certain relationship with those experts in a way that really promotes your career, because throughout this network, you can find better positions, better opportunities, and you might achieve your objectives, your career objectives much faster. You will have a career resources. Once you are part of this CFA society, CFA Institute, you will always receive a certain update about the job opportunities, about the career opportunities that we might be, that is only eligible for the CFA charter holders. So whenever a certain company, multinational company, financial institution, intermediary, they want to hire a certain financial analyst, for example, financial expert, portfolio manager, equity analyst, they always look for the CFA Institute so that they post their career opportunities in the CFA Institute. And until now, I always receive emails concerning some career opportunities. By the way, those career opportunities are not limited to your own countries. They will be international career opportunities. Why? Because you are CFA charter holders. And I want to end the slide by telling you that if I would like to compare, for example, between a master's in finance and a CFA charter holder, I'm not talking about a master's in finance from any university, from Harvard University. The latest appraised or the latest evaluation took place. It showed that the CFA charter holders are earning $50,000 a year more than the masters in finance from Harvard. So this shows that those companies really give more commitment or give more importance to the CFA charter holders compared to other educational levels like master's degree in finance and from Harvard University. Okay, Daniel. So your career opportunity with the CFA, again, when we're talking about chartered financial analyst, basically we're talking about an expert that is in knowledge of all the financial techniques from A to Z, so that as a CFA charter holder, you will be eligible to be a portfolio manager. And nowadays, this position is very important. And for example, if I would like to give an example about insurance company usually receives premium from the clients. So as an insurance company, once they receive this premium from the clients, those premiums should be managed in a way to generate a revenue. Who will be able to manage this premium received from the customer? A financial charter holder, like a portfolio manager. So if I'm talking about an insurance company as an example, the same goes for a bank. In a bank, we have a certain fund generated from the depositors. We should be able to find a way to manage this deposit generated from the customer by lending part as loans and managing the remaining as a certain portfolio. Who's able to manage this portfolio is a CFA charter holder. This is besides a portfolio manager who's able to manage a portfolio of high net worth clients. So we're talking about a very important position related to the management of the fund of a certain entity as a portfolio manager. Then we might have a role like a research analyst. And you know this, that whenever you want to embed a certain investment in your portfolio, if you want to initiate a certain investment, before you go through this investment, you should be able to analyze the potential performance of this investment before I make my own capital injection. In order to make this analysis, we need a research analyst who's able to really give us a certain indication about the potential performance of a certain investment. Who's eligible to conduct this research analyst is a CFA charter holder. And by the way, when we're talking about a CFA charter holder, we're not only talking about an expert that is able to analyze the financial statements of the company. No, we're talking about an expert who's able to analyze those financial statements besides the economic analysis of the country we are operating in. So when we say research analyst, we're talking about analysis like the top-down analysis, starting from the economy toward the industry and then toward a certain company or investment. Research analyst. Then we might have a role of a trader or a broker, an intermediary between the investor and the counterparty. Whenever we want to trade in a certain financial market, we should make this trade through a financial intermediary or financial institution. This financial institution be like a broker or an intermediary. You can be this trader or this broker or the intermediary between the investor and the counterparty. And then we might have the role of risk management or risk manager. And this is very important, especially after the collapse in 2008. After this period, we knew the importance of risk management, how we are able to really manage, mitigate, or hedge a certain risk. Because you know that whenever we are operating in a certain business or investment, we are always exposed to a certain risk. We as CFA charter holders, we should be able to, one, identify those risks. And I should be able to identify the risk that I am exposed to. Two, I should be able to identify how can I manage or hedge this risk. Because simply identifying the risk and the reason of the risk is not enough. I should be able to minimize the risk, to manage, to hedge the risk. So this is through what we call a risk management department or risk management position, which is very important. Then we can be acting as a private banker or financial advisor. Again, high net worth client, they have a certain amount of fund that is part of it deposited at the bank, part of it related to their own businesses, and there is another part related to a private investment. So me as a private banker, I'm not talking about a commercial banking that really accepts deposits and giving loans or initiating loans. We're talking about a private banking industry that really deals with high net worth clients. So we as CFA charter holders will be able to deal with those high net worth clients, to be able to guide them on the most important and most beneficial investments that they can embed in their portfolio. Come in, we might have the position of a financial analyst, and we'll be able to take the financial statements of any company and be able to analyze those financials, balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow statement in order to get a certain insight about the company's expected performance through their financial statements or financial data. Equity analyst, when we say equity analyst, we're talking about a certain position that really analyzes, that really try to expect the value of equity, of shares. So before, for example, we purchase a share issued by a certain company, Apple, Microsoft, GameStop, I would like to know the value of this share, whether this share is overvalued or undervalued, so that I can benefit from my investment in all cases, by the way. Because if the equity is overvalued, I have a certain technique to benefit from the overvalued equity. And if it is undervalued, we also can benefit from the undervalued equity. So who's able to really tell that this equity is over or undervalued? Again, the CFA charter holder. And then we might have an investment banking analyst related to an investment bank, as we said before, private banker or investment banker. We should be able to really analyze the high net worth client's performance and be able to generate or use their fund in a way that really increases their return based on their current profile. Because we, as analysts or portfolio managers or investment bankers, we are dealing with the others' fund, with the others' money. So we should be able to identify risk profile, for example, of the investor and act accordingly. This mechanism takes place by the investment banker position. So as you saw, we have a lot of opportunities, a lot of positions related to the CFA charter holders. So we're talking about very high level of positions that really adds value to your career and progress.
Thank you, Raad.
Okay, Daniel. Perfect.
All right, now I'm gonna discuss briefly how to become a CFA charter holder. So at first, we're gonna have to pass all the CFA level 1, 2, and 3. And then after that, after we pass our 3 levels, since they are prerequisites, so we need to finish with the CFA level 1 in order to do the CFA level 2, and the same thing for the CFA level 3. We have to achieve qualified work experience. The qualified work experience as in, by the end of when we're done with the CFA level 3, we need to prove that we have 4 years of relevant experience, anything related to finance, accounting, or auditing, whether it's investments, stock markets, and so on. After that, we need to submit reference letters, around 2 to 3 reference letters from someone credible, maybe a manager or maybe someone else. And then we apply to become charter holders. By that, we would have the designation. We would have the license to sign that we are CFA holders. And after that, we need to maintain the charter holder status by maybe giving courses or taking additional courses, attending seminars or webinars, and getting some points. And by that, we submit these points on maybe yearly level, and then we keep the CFA designation till then.
Okay, Daniel, but can I add something, please?
Yes.
That's concerning the qualified work experience. And once you finish the third level of your CFA, you can say that you passed all the levels of the CFA. But till now, you're not CFA charter holders. In order to apply to be member within the CFA Institute and to get your charter holder, you should have a certain relevant experience for a certain period of time. But I want to stress that this relevant experience should not be a high-ranking position. And as Daniel said, it should only be related to the accounting, finance, or risk management industry. But we're not talking about portfolio management position. We're not talking about investment banker. No, we are only concerned about having a certain experience in the finance industry, whether it's junior, middle, or senior level. The second thing that I would like to shed light on, once you are CFA charter holders, you should always be up to date to the new information, to the new standards, to the new rules. And in order to make sure that you are always up to date, you should always be able to follow up what the CFA Institute publishes related to the new standards and rules. So this is why they always require from you that to stay up to date, you should be able to read and to assess, and as a CFA charter holders, you will be receiving a periodic publishing or articles related to the CFA Institute. You should be able to prove that you read and you have knowledge of those new rules and regulations in order to be able or to be eligible to renew your charter holder. So we have two things. You should be able to have your charter holder once you have the relevant experience. To maintain your charter holder, you should always remain up to date by informing the CFA Institute that you are aware of their new rules, regulations, and standards. And Akid, you have, Akid, you have a yearly fee to pay, which is approximately $100. Okay, Daniel?
All right, thank you. All right.
Yes, Ahmad, auditor is considered a relevant experience, yes. Because again, as auditor, you're dealing with accounting, finance, financial control departments as auditors. So yes, you are eligible to consider this position as part of your years of experience. So yes.
Amazing. So again, the education and the experience requirements, Ra'ad covered them, I think, in a very detailed way. The only thing that I want to mention in addition to that is that for the CFA level 1, we can sit for the exam if we don't have a bachelor's degree. So you can be in your final year of your bachelor's degree program and still take the CFA program and sit for the CFA exam. All right, guys? Now we're going to talk about the CFA.
Okay, Bashar. Yes, but I want to answer Bashar. Bashar, if you're talking about management consultancy, and we're talking about a certain feasibility study, a certain assessment toward a certain business investment, and so on. So whenever you're dealing with a certain feasibility study throughout your consultancy job right now, yes, this feasibility study or this consultancy might be part of your work of experience. And as Daniel mentioned, the work of experience is not only related to work itself, you might embed whatever you did throughout your university as well. Okay, Daniel.
All right. So I think we have a question, additional question as well. Let me check. All right. So now we're going to talk about the CFA credential and exams and what to expect. So,
Kevin, I think we have a question, Daniel.
Yes. Sure.
Is it better to take them now or after having some experience? Look, concerning this question, to pass the exams or to sit for the exams, it's not related whether you are graduate or undergraduate, okay? So you can do this in parallel with your university study. They are not related at all. What really matters, and once you finish your CFA level 3 exam, you should be able to accumulate some experience. But for me, if you can have a certain time to manage between your university and CFA, it would be a good decision, because the material or the information يعني بتكون fresh in your mind, so that it would be easier for you. So yes, if you have time, you can do it for sure.
All right. Muhammad is asking, a Bachelor of Pharmacy is eligible to CFA or not? The thing is that
نحن Muhammad, whenever you're talking, yes, whenever you're talking about a CFA, excuse me. Okay.
All right. I think Ra'ad lost connection for now. I was going to say that the CFA Institute, I'm not going to just, I'm going to state facts. So whenever the CFA Institute, they don't mention that you need to have a bachelor's degree in finance or in accounting in particular. So they just mentioned that you need to have a bachelor's degree, and a bachelor's degree in pharmacy would do the thing.
Neil, are you hearing me?
Yes, now we can. Of course, you would have to do some extra effort maybe in order to pass your exam, but definitely you can do it. Ra'ad, you can take it from here as well.
Okay.
Yes, we're just discussing.
Great. Yes, concerning, I think someone was asking me about the pharmacy, I think. Yes, you might have a certain degree, but in pharmacy in specific, okay, I think we should make sure of this. Okay, but now we have some bachelor degree in engineering, in mathematics, but in pharmacy, and I want to ask for it.
Yes.
Okay. Questions. Okay, great. Daniel?
Yes, Amal is asking, will the previous experience before getting the CFA be counted?
Aki, definitely. Whatever experience you have, even before you get the CFA charter holder, is part of your years of experience. So whenever you finish your level 3 of the CFA exam, whatever experience you have previously, it's accumulated within your work experience. So the answer is yes, you can consider them as years of experience. Indeed.
Oh, amazing. So now we're going to talk about the CFA exams. As you know, we have 3 different exams for level 1, 2, and 3. In the first level, we're going to talk more about the knowledge and comprehension of the CFA. In level 2, we're going to do some application and analysis. And in level 3, we're going to tackle more the synthesis and the evaluation of the topics. The thing is that the exam is for the level 1, 2, and 3. They are they are settled, or they are done in different forms. For the CFA level 1, it's purely multiple choice questions. In level 2 and in level 3, they might differ a bit.
I would like to add something, Daniel, if you please. When we're talking about the CFA exams in levels 1, 2, and 3, plus or minus the same topics will be repeated or will be taken into consideration in those 3 levels. But the difference in the level of the knowledge or the level of the application that you embed in each level differs. so that in level 1, you will have the knowledge related to the concepts that you will be using later on. So in level 1, we as a curriculum, we are only introducing those concepts, while in level 2, we are trying to apply what we learned in level 1. And in level 3, we are trying to apply technically and analytically what we learned in levels 1 and 2. So we're talking about a progress in the content of the material, starting from the knowledge, application, and then evaluation and portfolio management. Okay, Daniel?
Sure. Sorry, I was answering. Someone was asking about if an experience in banking would count, and definitely.
Definitely.
So the average commitment time per level is 300 hours. I would say, guys, it's an average of 300 hours. That doesn't apply for everyone. It also depends on your pace and how much are you able to grasp the information. But that would be, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that would be the absolute minimum of the 300 hours.
Yes. When we talk about 300 hours, we're talking about an average. And for example, you might have some candidates that have time to study more than 300 hours. It would be very important, because the more we are committed to study properly for the CFA exams, the easier the exam will be. So for me, I don't want you to know that only 300 hours are enough. No. Whenever you have more time, more commitment, you can do it for sure. Because for the CFA exams, the very important part to pass this exam is through practice. And it's not only enough to read from the study guide or to read from the books and that's it. No, you should be reading from the books, reading from the study guide, and try to apply what you read through practice questions. So whatever you read and practice, it really accumulates new knowledge for you. You really be able to understand the concepts more and more. And we're talking about the practice questions that is included within the CFA resources. We're talking about more than 3,000 questions. So you should be able to solve all those 3,000 questions, not one time, more than 2 times, in order to really be able to understand every single concept. So 300 hours is only an average. The more you can commit, the better.
Amazing. All right, so the CFA exam content, as Ra'ad mentioned previously, that the topics you're going to go through throughout the CFA level 1 are the same that you're going to go over again in CFA level 2 and CFA level 3. The only thing that will change are the percentages in which you will be evaluated throughout the exam. So let's say I'm going to take, for example, the portfolio management and wealth planning. In the CFA level 1, it would have between 5 to 8% of your grade in the exam. In CFA level 2, you're going to have between 10 and 15%. And CFA level 3, you're going to be graded between 35% to 40% of your exam. But guys, on a side note, that explains, because you are handling all these topics throughout your CFA level 1, this explains why even if you took your CFA level 1, your profile would become more credible. You don't need to finish with the whole CFA and get your designation in order to notice some like advancement in your portfolio or in your profile. While you take the CFA level 1, you would start finding people that are a bit more interested in your profile as well, because you have already covered all of the topics. But in CFA level 2 and 3, you might dig a bit more deeper in that.
Definitely, Daniel. And when we're talking about a CFA level 1 candidate, we're talking about a candidate that really acquired a very important knowledge in the finance industry, starting from ethical standards, econ, financial statement analysis, and so on. So this really adds value to you as candidates, to your own backgrounds and performance. And it really changes the way you are able to analyze things. And it really changes the employer's view for your own performance. So level 1 really boosts your career, but again, it's not enough. We're talking about a CFA charter holder that is required to have all the 3 levels accomplished, levels 1, 2, and 3. And as you noticed, most of the parts or topics, they are recurring over the 3 levels, with the exception of the quantitative, FRA, and corporate finance. And you can notice that the portfolio management in level 3 has the highest percentage, highest weight, because at the end of the day, very important part of our career is related to wealth planning, investment planning, and portfolio management. And if you see that the ethical standards they have in all levels the same weights plus or minus to show that the CFA charter holders, they have the highest ethical and professional standards. And those topics, they are very important whenever you want to take a position in the finance industry related to any topic like FSA, corporate finance, fixed income. They are really important in your journey later on. And but I would like to answer, I think one of the candidates asked about a BA degree in engineering. Yes, we have a lot of engineers that continue their CFA certificates, because whenever we are an engineer, for example, and I would like to have a managerial position, it's a good idea to have the CFA charter holder, because again, as an engineer, project manager, this engineer, he should be able to conduct a feasibility study, assessment, evaluation for the investments or projects performance. We can do so through the CFA techniques. So Dayman, if you have the position or the education of the engineering, or you have this BA degree in engineering, and you combine with the CFA charter holder, akid you will have a very high caliber, and you will have a very high opportunities to join in specific project management positions. So yes, CFA charter holders really, or CFA charter holder really adds value to the engineers. So this is true.
Thank you.
Bashar, if we fail in the ethics part, we are dropped from. Yes, because we can't say this for sure, but what we know is the ethical part is very important, and there is a big possibility that if you pass all levels or all parts, all topics, and you fail totally your ethical standards, and you didn't answer any question in the ethical topic correctly, only you might fail, yes. But we're not talking about if you fail the ethical, you will fail the whole topic. No, we're talking about failing to answer any question correctly. In the ethical part, yes, we might have a certain failure. True.
All right, so Amal was asking if we can take the CFA level 3 directly. Unfortunately,
No,
Amal, that's not the case. As I mentioned before, they are prerequisites. So you need to do your CFA level 1 in order to do the level 2. And once you're done with the level 2, you can go to level 3. All right? All right. So as for 2021 examination testing windows, for the CFA level 1, we have 5 testing windows for this year. We have in February, May, July, August, and November. For level 2, we have 3 testing windows in May, August, and November. And in CFA level 3, we have as well 3 testing windows, May, September, and November. But please, guys, be noted that they might be subject to change. So in year 2022, we might have 4 testing windows for level 1 and 2 testing windows for each level 2 and level 3. But I think it's still a good sign, because in the past years, the CFA level 1 used to be, the testing windows used to be only in December and in June, and in level 2 and in level 3, we only had these exams in June. So I think that would be a perfect opportunity for you to still sit for your exam and pass it. All right, as for the 2021 exams, definitely it's computer-based exam. So you schedule the exam based on when would you want to take you want to sit for your exam. Definitely there are deadlines in order to sit for the exam, and we will keep you updated once you're registered in the course. We'll keep you updated on the deadlines. So the exam details, definitely we have 180 multiple choice questions for the level 1 exam. We have more than 400 locations globally, but definitely in each and every country, you do have the testing center, which you can sit for the CFA exam. And once you register for the exam, they will tell you exactly where the testing center is. The exam length is 2.25-hour sessions with a break in between. So you have in the first 2 hours or 2.5 hours, 2.25 hours, let's say, 90 questions, and then 90 other questions. As I mentioned, the question format is a multiple choice question, and you are expected to get your results 60 days after you do your exam. All right, so definitely I'm not going to go over it again. It's just that we have 180 multiple choice questions. We have 135 minutes for each session, 90 questions each session, and 60 days for like to get your grades. So we have a question from Bashar. So far, I'm studying for level 1, but I do not see a lot of emphasis on technical analysis and trading strategies. Does this approach change in level 2 and 3? I will keep this to Ra'ad, but definitely in each level, you would have a different approach. All right, I think we lost connection with Ra'ad. I'm just gonna, someone asked if the courses are online. Definitely the courses are live online. And we have a question. So how are we going to take the CFA exam? Do you have to learn something before moving on with exams? Plus, what help can it provide me as someone with veterinary medicine student as of right now? So you definitely should study for the exam. We do provide some material and we do provide live classes and some pre-recorded sessions in order to sit for your exam. Definitely, you have to prepare a schedule of around 6 months of a study plan in order to do your exam. The 6 month, I'm saying it's just an approximation. It doesn't have to be 6 months, but you need to study for your exam in order to be able to sit for it, of course. When it comes to your background, honestly, I'm gonna ask Ra'ad about it. I'm not gonna mark it as answered. We're gonna ask Ra'ad how does it help. Someone is asking how many days will the classes be held. So it's going to be held from the 21st of May till the 30th of October. It's twice per week, every Monday and Wednesday, or yes, it's every Monday and Wednesday. And it's going to be held from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Beirut time. All right. So guys, the tools and the resources, an all-inclusive learning approach. So in the CFA, we do have 3 different parties. We have the CFA Institute, which is the institute that sets your exam and provides you with your designation and certification. We have Kaplan Schweser. Kaplan Schweser is the leading supplier of material for the CFA, and definitely Morgan International. Morgan International is approved by the CFA Institute and Kaplan Schweser. We are prep providers. So we do have a strong partnership with them. We do help you sit for the exam by using the material of Kaplan Schweser and with coordination with the CFA Institute. All right, so the services and support throughout your journey. Guys, here I'm gonna talk about how do we support you and how do we make sure that you pass your CFA exam. Once you want to study for the CFA course, we do provide you with the material you need and with all the supporting material actually that you need in order to pass your exam and in order to ensure that you are on the right track. So first of all, we're going to give you the live online session. Throughout the live online session, it's very important to attend it because actually it's your chance in order to ask questions, in order to interact in your class, and in order to have some sort of communication with your colleagues and with your classmates and with the instructor as well. After each session, the session would be recorded and it would be sent to you the next day in order to keep it as a reference. So if you watch the session and you want to watch it again, it would be available. But if you didn't watch it for any reason, you do have it the next day in order to like identify yourself as not skipping the session. You would get the Premium Plus package of the material from Kaplan Schweser, which is a mix between of hard copy material and soft copy material. The hard copy material includes around 9 items between quick sheets, between summaries, between academic books and practice exams as well. And you're going to have the soft copy, which is somehow an online software. Throughout this online software, it's the major source of practice because you do have the Q banks. So let's say you went over your classes or you went over a certain topic, let's say ethics, you can go to your online software and do Q banks. You get to choose the level of which you want to take the Q banks. You want it advanced, you want it beginner. You get to choose the number of questions you want for that certain topic. You want 300 questions or 200 questions. And you would have pre-recorded sessions from the instructors of the CFA Institute. These pre-recorded sessions, they are per reading. So it would be ethics by itself, quantitative methods by itself, fixed income by itself. So as well, you would have them at your convenience. So whenever you're ready to study or you have some time, you can definitely study for the CFA. You have one-on-one technical coaching and support. I'm going to talk about myself as a program advisor for the CFA here in Beirut. I'm always here to support you guys, whether you have any question, whether you want to register for the exam and you need assistance. We are always here, and I'm sure that other program advisors in other cities do share the same approach that I do. We have exam tips and strategy, and that would be, and as well, the practice and review sessions. The exam tips and strategy and the practice and review sessions, you would find them throughout the course. So we're going to start with everything related to the topics, everything theoretical. We're going to tackle all the topics in a theoretical way, but by the end of your session, we're going to do practice and review sessions so that by the end of October or 30 October in particular, you would definitely you would definitely have done everything. You would have taken all the theoretical part of the CFA, and you would have done the practice and review sessions. I do have some questions I'm going to answer now. If I took them after we go back to normal life, will it still be online? Look, honestly, because we don't have an overview of the situation now, I don't have a very solid answer about that particular question. I'm not really sure about that. But if, again, I'm not going to say anything about that because we actually don't know. And we don't know actually if we're going to, how long we're going to stay in this situation. But what I would say is that if, just imagine, if you're going to a live class, you actually would go for a live class for 3 hours, and then whatever you have taken, from that class, that's it. I mean, while if the class is live online, then you're getting the recorded sessions, so you can go over and over the session again, right? But definitely, we're going to keep you updated with everything. Hamza, he's asking, I'm planning on acquiring both the CFA and the FRM characters. Would you advise on one studying and acquiring both simultaneously?
Yes, Danny, can I answer him?
Yes, sure.
Yes, Hamza, and I was typing the answer. Akid, I don't recommend to take both certificates at the same time. So, إذا أنت you're looking for a risk management position, the CFA itself, it gives you the required expertise, the required knowledge within the risk management positions. So that if you want to choose between the CFA and the FRM, Akid, it's always better to start with the CFA, then you can do both of them at the same time. Both of them, they will be difficult for you to handle at the same time. So that if you want to have a risk management position or you're looking for a risk management education or technique, you can go for the CFA certificate because the CFA gives you a proper insight about the risk management techniques, the risk hedging techniques that is used by the risk management department. So that we can say that the CFA charter holder includes the financial analysis and the risk management. So my recommendation to start with the CFA, and then if you find it's important for you to go further for the FRM, you can do it. But I can guarantee for you that the CFA itself, it really gives you the full knowledge and the full expertise and the full designation for the risk management operations.
Thank you, Rahad. Roger was asking, can we start studying before the 21st of May and be ready for July 2021? I'm going to as well give it to Rahad. He's going to answer this.
Yes, this is a good step, by the way, and this is what I did personally. Damon, before I start for the live sessions for the CFA level 1, 2, or 3, I always try to start studying standalone so that once I join the sessions, I am already aware of the concepts. So I highly recommend, if you have the time and the resources, to start studying before July so that when you attend the classes, you are already familiar with the concepts and you will have some points or inquiries that you can raise them with the instructor. So it's highly recommended to do so, 100%.
All right. Roger, if you meant that you want to study, if you mean that you want to start studying before the 21st of May and be ready for the exam of July, I wouldn't think that.
For July, no way.
Because we're already almost in April, and I don't think a 3-month study plan would do the job. Am I right, Rahad?
Yes. There is no way, and it's very difficult to do it, to start on the 21st of May and be ready for July exam. It's not easy at all.
Right, Rahad, someone was asking, I just answered Yotam partially. They asked that what can it help the CFA, what would help them if someone is in the veterinary medicine student as of right now?
Again, whenever you have a certain objective related to the finance, to the banking, to the, let's say, financial statement analysis industry, feasibility studies, management, and we're talking about the CFA designation that really adds value to this career. So whenever we're talking about pharmaceutical industries, pharmacists, or medical industry, CFA really adds value from the managerial part. So I will be having the degree of medicine or pharmacist and so on, or engineer, and at the same time I will be having the CFA charter holder. So I will be able to have a managerial position in my field, and really this really what distinguishes an engineer without any CFA and engineer with a CFA, pharmacist with CFA and without CFA. You know, those that have the CFA degree as well, they will have the potential to get a managerial position in their fields.
Right. Someone was asking about the email. Guys, I'm going to drop my email in the chat box. So if you have any inquiries about the program, you can use my email.
Mohammed Khalawi, for sure, as an investor in the stock market in Egypt, for sure the CFA is a requirement to have a better position later on. So, yani, as an investor in the stock exchange, for sure the CFA is ideal for you, 100%.
All right, someone is asking if it is possible to communicate with the CFA charter because I would like to ask about their experience. Actually, Ra'ad is a CFA holder if you want.
Yes, I am CFA Charlie. Go ahead. If you have any question, let me know.
All right, so by that time, I'm going to go over the program, live online course, tools and resources. Guys, I'm sure that I have mentioned everything related to the course and everything related to the material. Once you register with the course, you're going to be very well equipped and you're going to be very well aware of everything mentioned in this slide. You're going to know about the quick sheets, about the practice exams, about the instructor links, the Schweser's secret sauce. If I go where I'm now, we're not gonna finish today. But once you register for the course, you're gonna be very well informed about everything in this.
Right? Okay, and I would like to add something here, Daniel, if you please. So throughout those resources, they really allow you to have a good insight about the CFA curriculum and helps you to pass those exams from the first attempt. Because what we usually aim is to make the candidates ready to pass the CFA exams from the first attempt, which is very, very, very interesting, to be able to pass all 3 levels from the first attempt. In order to do so, you have those resources that are very useful for you to really be ready and prepared for the exam dates. And I would like to emphasize on the Schweser notes that are related to the CFA material or the CFA curriculum. So it's very important to go those Schweser notes, your study guide that you have for the CFA curriculum, besides the Schweser Pro Q Bank, because this Q Bank includes more than 3,000 questions related to the CFA exams. And once you are able to solve those questions 2 times, for example, you will be really ready to sit for the official exam. So whenever you are able to practice from this Q Bank, the easier the exam will be. So for me, it's very important to have a good insight about the study guide of the Schweser books, to read every LOS, every concept, do not miss any concept, and to practice what you learned throughout the sessions, the Schweser notes, through the Q Bank questions. That again includes more than 3,000 questions that are matched by that matches the real CFA questions, which is very important. So here, the more you practice, the easier the exam will be. So for me, this Q Bank is very important. It's the major recipe to pass those exams from the first attempt.
Amazing. Ahmed Saeed is asking what's the difference between the CFA and the CFA charter holder in the terms of job opportunity. I do believe that it's the same thing, but sometimes we're as a CFA and sometimes
yes. Ahmed, to be a CFA charter holder, you should be part of the CFA Institute. Yani again, once you finish the 3 levels of the CFA, once you prove that you have the relevant experience, you pay your subscription fees, you are a CFA charter holder. On annual basis, you are required to make sure that you give a proof for the CFA Institute that you are always up to date of the new rules and regulations, to pay your annual fees in order to maintain your charter holder. Halla, in case you fail to do so, you didn't pay your dues, $100 per year, or you are not able to stay up to date, you will lose your charter holder. But at the same time, you are a CFA or a candidate or an investor who passed those three CFA levels, but you can't claim that you are CFA charter holder. So again, simply having passed those three levels of the CFA exams, it doesn't mean that you are charter holder. It means that you passed the three levels of the CFA. While to be CFA charter holders, again, you should have the relevant experience. You should always be up to date with the new rules and regulations and paying your yearly fees. So I think this is what you meant by the difference between CFA and charter holder.
All right. So guys, here we're going to jump into the tips and the best practices to set you on the right track. In addition to everything Raad mentioned and I as well. And definitely we talked a bit about the 300 hours, set the right plan. Guys, we need to start early and to be consistent. So the best practice is to start studying from the first day. So don't accumulate the topics or don't accumulate the readings until the mid of the session or until right before the exam. That wouldn't do the job. And you should always have some sort of stamina. You should always be consistent and you should study, I would say, day by day or topic per topic as well, right? You need to personalize your study plan and calendar. So you have a great tool, and this is the Schweser Planner, which will help you to set some sort of a study plan in order to finish your studying right before the exam. So you just mentioned when is your exam, and you mentioned what topics you want to study, and the Schweser Planner will help you do the study plan in order to be right on track. And then you need to stick to your schedule and don't fall behind, because in order to be able to be right on track and to do your exam and pass your exam from the right attempt, you need to be organized and scheduled. So we believe that we are giving you the best practices and the best material and the best supporting instructors in order to pass your exam. So just don't ruin that by like not scheduling or not doing the right study plan. All right. I would say that that would be the best practices for the CFA exam. An effective approach while studying for the
Okay, but Daniel?
Yeah.
Daniel?
Yeah.
Yes, but I want to add something. It's very important to always stay up to date. Yani, whenever you finish a certain concept, a certain LOS, a certain study throughout the online sessions, it's very important to always stay up to date so that you don't have any previous material that you are required to know or study. So staying up to date is very important to be able to have the proper commitment and the proper time to finalize your preparation for the CFA exam. And I think there is a question from Omar. What is the minimum duration to be a chartered? Usually, Omar, you can finish level 1, 2, and 3 in 2 years or 2 years and a half. This is the minimum time that you can have to finish the 3 levels of the CFA. The mathematical section is not that big because in the CFA exam, they emphasize mainly on the analytical part. And you will have some ratios, you will have some equations and formulas, but what really matters is the analysis of this formula, is the analysis of this ratio. And they won't be testing a lot about the calculation part. They test more about the analysis part. So, and this is really makes a difference. And I can have the formula and I can calculate a certain ratio, but the question is, are we able to analyze it to base a certain expectation or opinion or a feedback based on this ratio? This is really what matters. And this is how you are tested in the exam. We have a part that is related to calculation, but it's much less than the analytical part. Concerning which one is better, CFA or CPA, they are not comparables because the CFA is related to the financial analysis, while CPA, we're talking about certified public accountant. So it depends on your own objective. Whether you want to be an accountant, you can go for a CPA. Whether you want to be a financial analyst, financial controller, treasurer, portfolio manager, financial analyst, equity analyst, risk manager, you go for a CFA. And as you noticed, I mentioned many positions for the CFA, but I only talked about one position for the CPA. So you can tell which one is better. Okay, Daniel.
So we're going to talk about an effective approach while studying for the CFA exam. So we need to prepare, practice, and perform. So look, it doesn't work if you only study or you only just read your material. You need to practice using the platforms that we give you, and you need to have practice time management. Just practice time management in order to be able to finish your curriculum and be ready before the exam. You need to cover every live online session. And as I mentioned before, the live online session will be good if you have any questions in order to communicate with your instructor, to ask questions and to participate as well. You need to take mock exams and get familiar with the exam format, and that would happen through the online platform and the Q banks, where you would find questions similar to the ones that you are going to have in your exam. You need to review regularly in order to have some sort of consistency and stamina. You need to develop a test-taking strategy. You need to know some information about the test. You have some idea of the types of questions and how the exam format would be. And you want to have start and end with ethics, and not only for the topic you're going to cover in the CFA, but you need to be ethical as well while studying for the exam, while taking the courses, and definitely reward yourself because you would actually deserve it, of course. All right, a few more tips. Don't go overboard in any one area. You need to focus on each and every topic. Don't go overboard in any one area. Use available tools and resources. As I mentioned before, we do provide you with the best supporting material and the best instructors. So use these available tools in order to make the best out of your experience and to pass your exam from the first attempt. Know your calculator. Definitely our instructors will teach you how to use your calculator, but please go the extra mile and try to discover more about the calculator so that you would feel at ease when you're using it. Train to sustain. So in order to be faster while like solving problems or answering questions, practice and train in order to become more confident and be prepared for the exam day. So you need to be prepared. You need to have like, you need to be, you need to relax, and you need to be prepared for the exam day. Now, guys, we have ended everything related to the operations and the CFA. What you need to know about the CFA designation. Guys, if you have questions, we can do the questions now, but make sure to stick till the end in order to have some essence of how the course goes on and to have an overview of the overall experience with Morgan International and with Raat in particular, how the course is going to go, and actually try to test how the sessions would be held. All right, guys, so please try to make use of the session and ask as much questions as you want.
Daniel, but if you can go back to the previous slide, please.
Yes, sure.
And I would like to emphasize on a specific point.
Sure.
When we say use the available tools and resources, and we as Morgan will be providing the candidates with all the tools required to pass those exams again from the first attempt. So if you are able to use those resources like the study guides, the Schweser notes, the QBank link, the practice questions, the practice books, those are resources that are very important to be able to make the candidate ready for the exam. And we as Morgan, we are providing those resources to the candidates in order to be ready to pass those exams from the first attempt. And this is why we have a passing rate that really exceeds the average passing rate or the international passing rate in terms of candidates doing their CFA exams. Why? Because those resources are very, very important. And you should know how to use those resources properly to have a good knowledge, a good competencies for the exam throughout those resources, which are very important.
Okay, Roger, you're asking about the price of the program. Is it a fixed tuition fee? Actually, it differs from one city to another. So I have included my email in the chat box. Please check the chat box. It's d.sad@morganintl.com, and just send me an email asking all the questions that you want to know about the fees, and I will definitely get back to you the soonest. Okay, I'm going to type it again. Okay, guys, here's my email. Just guys, please send me your email. Send an email along with the city that you are contacting me from, and I will definitely get back to you with all the answers.
By the way, when we say here, know your calculator, because for the CFA exam, you have a specific calculator that you can have. And this calculator is very useful if you know its users or how to use it. So this is why we have throughout the course, I think, let's say 1 hour throughout this course, just to let the candidate know about this calculator, because it's very important. If you know how to use it, it will really facilitate your journey as a CFA candidates.
Raj, you're going to talk today about the economics part?
Yes, and I chose the economic part in order to show them that when we talk about CFA, we're not talking about financial analysis of financial statements of a company. We're talking about a financial analysis and economic analysis. Because again, when we are talking about a financial analyst, this financial analyst should be able to conduct a top-down analysis starting from the economy, industry, and then toward the investments financial statement. So this is when I chose this part.
All right. Yes, sure. I'm gonna again retype my email in the chat box. Okay, guys, without much further ado, we're gonna step in the demo lecture, and I'm gonna give the floor to Raed. Okay, just all right. Can you see my email now, guys? Perfect. Okay. All right, the floor is yours.
Great. So my demo lecture today is about the aggregate output related to a certain economy. And you know that whenever I would like to measure the economic performance of a certain country, I go through what we call a GDP, gross domestic product. And this gross domestic product for any economy measures the value of final products produced within a certain country. So whenever I would like to look for the economic growth and the economic performance of a certain economy, I would like to look for the market value of products that are produced within a certain country within a certain time period. This market value of the products really gives you a certain insight about the economic indication and the economic condition of a certain economic performance. Can we go through it, Daniel, please? Can you move on? Great. So the major indicator of any economy is called the gross domestic product, GDP. Whenever we're talking about GDP, we're talking about the market value of all final goods and services produced within a country. And when I want you to know that when we talk about a market value, we're talking about a product, a good, or a service that is traded in the market, that has a certain price in the market. We're not talking, for example, about a volunteer mechanism. We're not talking about a black market activity. No, we're talking about a certain activity that is traded in the market, that has a certain value in the market. So this is why we say that the GDP includes the market value. so that we include all production, all activities that are traded in the market. We exclude any non-traded activity. And for example, I agreed to make a volunteer work for a certain entity. This volunteer work, it doesn't have any value because I wasn't paid for it. So this is not included in the GDP. We only include in the GDP whatever activity that have a certain market value. Whatever activity that is done in the black market, and it's not in the legal aspect of the operation, again, it's not included in the GDP because it doesn't have a market value. So it's very important to know that this GDP includes the market value of final goods and services. When we say final goods, we're not talking about intermediate goods. We only include in our calculation the final product, the final good value, so that if I want to measure, for example, a certain product, I measure the value of this final product. I don't measure the value of the product plus its raw material, for example. Why? Because the raw material related to this finished good is already included in its ending value. So when we say final good, we're talking about the good that is ready for trade. We exclude any calculation or any addition to the intermediate products because, again, this intermediate product value is already included in the final product. So market value, which means that the product should be traded in the market. Final goods and services, we exclude the intermediary products because they are already included in the final goods or services produced in a certain country or economy. So whatever activity that takes place within the country, within a certain domestic economy, it will be part of the GDP. I don't care whether this activity comes through a certain domestic production or domestic labors or domestic resources or non-domestic. The fact that this operation is taking place within Lebanon, for example, I don't care whether this activity is through Lebanese resources or non-Lebanese. The fact that this activity takes place within Lebanon, within KSA, within UAE, it's part of the GDP. So that this is why most of the countries, they really try to attract some foreign investors to make investments domestically, because this investment by foreigners, it will be part of their GDP. So that the GDP as a definition is the market value of final goods and services produced within a country. Usually this GDP is calculated, analyzed, interpreted on a yearly basis. So whenever I would like to know the performance of the company, I should be able to calculate the GDP of the current year and compare it to the GDP of the previous year and to see whether we have any progress. Again, as we said, we only include the goods that are valued in the market. We only include the final goods. We exclude intermediate products. We include, for example, in the GDP calculation, the rental value of owner-occupied housing, which means is I have a certain apartment that I own it. So I'm benefiting from the usage of this apartment. Although I'm not paying a certain rent fee because I own this apartment, we should be including the estimated rental value in the GDP, because again, we as owners of those apartments, we are taking benefit of this apartment, although we are not paying a rent fee, but this estimated rent fee should be part of the GDP. And we include any governmental services related to a certain country or economy. So this is the concept of the GDP that is really affected by what we call the aggregate demand, whatever demand made by the households. Okay, Daniel, if you can go further, please.
Guys, I just want you to treat this session as if it's a real live online session. So,
and I don't have access to, I'm not able to change this PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, I'm going to do that. But guys, treat it as if it's a live online session. Ask questions. Try to
yes.
Try to communicate, ask questions, participate. Okay, just act as if it's a real live online session. All right.
True. Okay, then. Great. So when we talked about a GDP, we said that this GDP is mainly affected by what we call the aggregate demand, the demand that is made by the households within a certain community, the households within a certain country. If I would like to tell what are the components of this aggregate demand or of this GDP, we can say that the GDP is a function of one, consumption. When we say consumption, we're talking about the expenditure made by the households. So if we are talking about KSA, one part that really taken into consideration to calculate the GDP is the expenditure made by the households within KSA. The higher this expenditure made by the households, it means that we have higher consumption, and this higher consumption will lead to a higher aggregate demand made by the households, which means that the GDP will increase. So a major determinant for a GDP, for an economic growth, is the consumption made by the households. The higher the consumption, the higher the GDP. Because I want you to know that if we have high expenditure or high consumption, this will lead to higher investment, to higher supply, so that we'll have more employment, more income, and the economic cycle will turn on. So this is why the major factor that affect the GDP is the consumption. And basically, this consumption constitutes 2/3 of the GDP. So 2/3 of the GDP is related to consumption. So this is the first factor that really affect the GDP. The second factor is your investment. When we talk about investment, which is noted by I, we're talking about the private investment initiated within a country. So nowadays, whenever we have higher private investment, again, whether by foreigners or domestic investors, we're talking about higher activity within the economy, and this will lead to higher GDP. This is why most of the governments try to attract businesses, try to attract investors, because those businesses, those investments will really add value to the economy, will really hire new employees, so that the unemployment rate in the country decreases, the income generated by the households increase, and then we will have a higher aggregate demand or higher GDP. So that the second factor that really affects the GDP or the aggregate demand is the investment made by private sector. The third factor is related to the government expenditure. When we say government expenditure, yani how much a domestic government is spending within the economy, is initiating a new capital, new investment within the economy. Usually, I want you to know that the government expenditure should not be the biggest part of any GDP. The government expenditure should help the GDP to grow, but it shouldn't be the major determinant of an economic activity. What we really care about is to have this high economic growth due to consumption and investment. We can add this government expenditure as an addition, but it shouldn't be at all the major determinant. And this is what you are seeing, for example, in KSA as per the Vision 2030. The major reason of the Vision 2030 is to decrease this government intervention in the market, to try to diversify the Saudi economy out of the oil production, and try to boost the foreign investment within KSA, so that we can have by year 2030 a certain economy that is really growing quickly, that is really less depending on oil, so that we'll have a better standard of living for the households. Government expenditures plus net exports. When we say net exports, we're talking about the difference between what we export to foreign countries and what we import from foreign countries. So it's very important to have a certain economy that is considered an exporting economy. Like Germany, for example. Germany, a big part of its GDP, of its economic activity, comes from the export because Germany is an exporting country. It produces some products internally within Germany and it exports those products to the international markets so that we have exports, but at the same time, we might have some import goods or products or services that are bought from international markets. The difference between export, what we sell to the international market, and import, what we purchase from international market is called your net exports. And I want you to know that whenever we have exports that exceed import, this is a good scenario. It means that we are an industrialized country. We are able to produce internally and sell to international markets. So those are the major determinants of the GDP that you should be able to assess and analyze in order to tell whether an economy is going toward a growth or is going toward a recession.
Nice. Roger was asking, what about Lebanon's GDP? It decreased from 50 billion to 18 billion. What was it? Was it because of the currency devaluation, or because most market value products are being sold on a market on a black market rate, or something else?
Okay, Roger. Look, Roger, I did a lot of interviews related to this problem, by the way. So when we have, by the way, our GDP in 2018, it was 55 billion. It decreased to approximately 20 to 18 billions. And we have more than 60% decrease in the GDP. And this is related, by the way, because Lebanon is not a certain economy that is considered an industrialized economy. We're not an exporting economy. We used to have a certain economy that depends mainly on the funds that are transferred by the expatriates toward their families here in Lebanon. And we used to use those savings deposited at the banking sector in a place that should not be used. Usually the banking sector in any country, Roger, it should be able to play the role of a channel, of an intermediary between those who have a surplus of money and those who are in need of money, who have a shortage of money. Here in Lebanon, within the banking sector, tax sector, they received more than $150 billion. But instead of initiating loans for productive activities like factories, businesses, investments, what they did, they invested more than 60 or 70% in the Lebanese treasury bonds. They gave loans for the government through BDL, مصرف لبنان. So هون كانت البروبلم. Plus, the Central Bank of Lebanon was using part of this reserve to peg the currency at 15.15. And this led to a decrease in the reserve approximately $40 billion. So that this saving of approximately $150 billion was evaporated either through treasury bonds or through the pegging of the currency. And throughout this period, we were not investing in a certain businesses that yields a certain return to the country in order to make a transfer in our economic activity from being mainly dependent on the expatriates and the savings within the banking sector toward an exporting or industrialized economy. So this is basically the problem. And by the way, the current value of the LBP, it doesn't have any limit. It might reach, and I don't want to say numbers, it doesn't have any limits, because the fact that we have outflow of funds that exceeds in dollar, that exceeds the inflow of funds, حيضل في عنا deterioration in the Lebanese currency. So there is no limit for the Lebanese currency. It might reach very high or very low levels. So this is هيك in brief the Lebanese problem.
Thank you, Raad.
I like the question.
Guys, for the ones that are raising their hand, please feel free to type your questions, all right? So that
definitely. Roger is asking, what should our GDP be in USD to be held? No, not at all. we should always have our GDP or any GDP calculated and addressed in the domestic currency. But we again, because we were pegging the currency into the dollar at 15.15, so that before 2019, and I don't care whether I receive 150,000 LBP or $100 because there is a peg. Right now, once the currency is floating, no, we should always be pricing and calculating and evaluating the GDP based on the LBP. هلا نحن in Lebanon, if we can go for a project, Roger, with the IMF, so that we can have some funds that is injected in the Lebanese economy, if we can make some reforms, governmental reforms related to the public sector, electricity, and so on, we can have a certain, okay, better indications 5 years from now. But in order to tell that we are going toward the good area within a short term, unfortunately, it's not the case. We need 5 years in order to go back where we were in 2019. If we started the reforms today and we have an agreement with the IMF. Otherwise, we are in a big problem.
No pressure,
This is the fact, yeah. So, concerning the aggregate demand, what are the factors that really change the aggregate demand? And do you know, dears, that we as households, we as customers, we have many factors that might change our customer or our demand perceptions. First of all, the first factor is your wealth. Whenever I have more wealth, it means that I have the ability to consume more. So that I can say that whenever the households have higher wealth, this higher wealth will lead to higher consumption, and this higher consumption will lead to higher GDP. While whenever we have lower wealth, and by the way, when we're talking about wealth, we're not talking about the dollar value. We're talking about the purchasing power. And those of you who are from Lebanon, they know what do we mean by purchasing power. They know what do we mean by a decrease in the real value of their income. So whenever we have a decrease in the real value due to inflation, this decreases our wealth and decreases our consumption. Bainama, whenever we have higher wealth, this means that we'll be having higher consumption and higher GDP. So the first factor that affects the GDP and the aggregate demand is the wealth. The second factor is the expectation about economic growth. So for example, today, if I have a negative expectation about the economic conditions in the future, if I have $100, I won't be spending this $100 because I have a negative outlook of what might happen in the future. While if I have this positive outlook about the future, if I have a positive expectation about the economic conditions in the future, only we can say that if I have $100, I will spend this $100 and I will borrow in order to spend more. Why? Because I have a positive expectation about the future. So it tells you that the expectations about the future, it really plays a vital role in the economic conditions. Because based on this expectation, we will have a change in consumption. We as households, we will either increase or decrease the consumption, which affects your GDP and economic growth, and the investors as well. Whenever we have a negative outlook about the current condition and the coming condition, most of the businesses either shut down their businesses in the country or in the economy, or at least downsize their businesses. And for sure, we will not be receiving any new foreign investors. Why? Because we might have a negative outlook about the future. Why? If we have a positive outlook about the future, only we can have investors, existing investors that try to expand their operation in order to benefit from the expected economic growth. We have foreign investors that try to enter the market in order to benefit from this expected growth. So when you can see how much the expectations really affect your GDP, consumption and investment. So that expectations plays a vital role in the GDP. A third factor, which is the no, Daniel, I didn't finish yet. Okay, capacity utilization. When we talk about capacity utilization, we're talking about efficiency. Yani how much we are efficient in using our resources. So the more efficient we are in using the resources, the higher the investment and the higher the GDP. So this is why we should always try to avoid lose resources, to avoid being inefficient in using the resources. So if I have machines that have a certain potential to produce X units within a certain period, I should make sure that I'm using this machine to its maximum potential so that I will be able to have an efficient usage of resources. Tax rates plays a role in the GDP. Whenever a government wants to increase the investment, wants to increase the consumption, it might decrease its tax rate. For example, if we have a VAT of 11%, value added tax, if the government wants to increase the consumption pattern by the households, it might enact a law that decreases the VAT, because once we have lower VAT, it means that I can purchase more goods or services. Or the tax on salary. If the government decides to decrease the tax on salary, it means that the disposable income or the remaining income that is paid to the employees will be higher. Higher income will lead to higher GDP. So when we have many factors that affect the GDP, and I talked today about the consumption, investment, wealth, capacity utilization, and tax rates. So here you can see how we can assess the aggregate demand and the GDP. Okay, Daniel. This is the aggregate demand mechanism. And we should know that whenever we talk about economic indicators, we should have demand and supply, so that the demand is made by the customers who want to purchase a certain product, and the supply is made by the businesses who produce and sell those products. We always have this relationship between demand and supply. We previously talked about the factors that affect the demand pattern. What about the factors that affect the short-run supply? One, decrease in input prices. Whenever a business or an investor believes that the input prices is decreasing, this decrease in input price will lead to higher production, to lower cost of production, and this will lead to more supply. So one factor that affects the supply is the input prices. Another factor, for example, as we said, related to the expectation about the economic growth. Whenever we have this positive expectation about the economic growth, it means that the investor will be able to increase his investment in order to benefit from the economic growth. Or if we have what we call decrease in business taxes, for example, whenever we have lower taxes, this will boost the investment. If you notice, those factors are related to short-run aggregate supply. In the short run, this supply might be affected by the cost of production. If I would like to look for the long-run aggregate supply changes, about some factors that really change the long-run aggregate supply, I want to look for factors other than the cost. And then I want to go to the next slide, please, Daniel. Concerning the long-run aggregate supply, I want to look for strategic changes. For example, increase in labor supply. This increase in labor supply increases the resources available within a certain country. Once we have this increase in labor, it means that we will have more resources, which lead to more production. So this is why some European countries are accepting refugees, for a major reason to increase their labor supply. And they always choose those refugees to have some technical skills that are not available within the European nations. Why? In order to increase the long-run aggregate supply. So this is one. Two, increase in the availability of natural resources. Imagine a country discovering a certain oil or gold or copper or any natural resources. Since we have this new natural resources discovered within a certain country, this natural resource plays a big role in the economic growth and in specific in the growth of the aggregate supply. So that any increase in the available resources will affect positively the supply because the raw material, the natural resources is discovered within the country borders. Then, very important factor related to the human capital. When I talked about the labor supply, I mentioned that we want to have a labor supply with high technical skills so that it's very important to have increase in human capital. Yani once you are continuing your education, you are acquiring new skills, knowledge, and competencies. You will be able to help your countries in promoting and growing their economy because your quality will increase, the quality of performance will increase so that the human capital within your countries will improve and the productivity and the supply will increase. Then the advances in technology, which is very important. Nowadays, the developed countries are always emphasizing in advances in technology. They invest in research and development to be able to have some technological advancements that allow them to increase their productivity, to improve their performance, to increase the supply at lower cost. So those are factors that are different than the short-run factors when we're talking about strategic factors that affect any GDP. Okay, Daniel? Once we have this GDP, we should look for the sustainable growth, which means I would like to have a certain permanent growth, not temporary growth, so that we say that this sustainable growth is achieved by one, the labor productivity, how much the laborers are educated, are competent, are skilled and knowledgeable, so that the more competent are those labor, it means that they have higher labor productivity, multiplied by the aggregate hours worked, how much hours they are spending to produce products, goods, or services, so that the product of the average hours worked and the labor productivity will lead to a certain potential GDP, growth in GDP. And as you notice, having aggregate hours worked that is increasing without good labor productivity, it won't be generating our objective. No, we should always have more efficiency in terms of productivity and more aggregate hours worked in order to have a potential GDP. So this is why we can say that the growth in potential GDP is a factor of two major factors. One, the growth in labor force and the growth in labor productivity. And this is why most of the developed and developing countries, they try to emphasize on building a good human labors or human resources with high labor equality in order to have a potential GDP that is increasing over time. And this is why, by the way, in Lebanon, we say that the major resources related to the human resources, because they are skilled, competent, and so on, and they can really play a vital role in an economic growth. And again, if I want to end this concept, why we are studying this economic growth, because this economic growth really affects the equity return, your investment return. So before you invest in any country, you should make sure that this country is experiencing an economic growth, so that whatever invest investment you embed in a certain country will yield the required return. So this is a demo lecture related to the economics, up-to-date information that really gives you an insight about the topics that will be covered throughout the CFA curriculum, which are all related to the real life scenarios. So as I mentioned, KSA, Lebanon, Europe, and so on, we're talking about real life scenarios that are implemented throughout this CFA curriculum. And this is the major importance of the CFA because it gives you an insight about the practical part of the education or continuing learning. Okay, Daniel.
Thank you, Ra'ad. Guys, it's time to ask any question on your mind. Sorry for that. Just go ahead, ask any question, guys, please. Make use of the session. Try to get as much information as you want. Anyone, guys?
Yes, and I wanted to exploit this opportunity. Whatever question you have related to the CFA exam, CFA curriculum, CFA charter holder, the industry that you might work for, whatever questions you have, try to exploit this opportunity to have a good knowledge of what you are expecting later on.
No questions, guys? Oh, we have a question here.
It's a comment. It was very useful. Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you, Vanessa. All right, we're going to give it just 2 more minutes before ending the session. Right, this was a glimpse of the economics part in the CFA or just a very general overview?
No, it's the CFA and the economic part of the CFA.
All right.
Yep. So by now they have a certain understanding of what might be covered throughout the CFA curriculum,
Nice.
throughout this demo lecture. Hassan, thank for you, dear.
Thank you, Hassan.
I think, Daniel, there are no more questions.
Yes. All right, Habib, you're most welcome. I think that no one has a question, so we're going to end the webinar now. Guys, you are most welcome to attend the session. I have provided you with my email. Ra'ad would be one of the instructors in the CFA, so definitely you can make use of his presence in the CFA program. So it was great having you guys, and hopefully we'll get in contact soon.
Definitely.
Thank you, Ra'ad.
Okay.